Hey everybody, welcome back to the Shed. I am Troy Shaw, and with me again is Dave Griffiths. How's it going, Dave?
It's going good.
So your wife is in Vegas, having a good time without you. So we're having a good time without her.
Well, she called me today, and I hope she's having a good time. It's on Baylor's dime, so I'm not too worried about her squandering the family finances.
Yeah, they have plenty of money to. Baylor's got plenty of money to.
She's not a gambler, so I'm not worried.
That's good. That's good. All right. Well, today our guest is Jonathan Kutz.
Kutz.
He is a drummer extraordinaire. He is a local musician, played in many bands around the area. He's a commercial music instructor at MCC here in Waco. And so welcome to the show, man. Welcome in the Shed. How you doing?
Oh, thanks, man. Nice warm welcome here. Beautiful day. A few brews. Big old microphone in our face. We're just
having a good time.
Dave would put some pants on. He's got no pants.
Yeah, you know, I usually wear shorts because it's usually at 3 p.m., but...
that's why there's no cameras allowed. We like to be comfortable while we're in here.
We're going to do a commando episode, I think.
Hey, and I love this show. I've been listening to a bunch of them, and if you haven't listened to them, they're and you know a lot of the musicians around town. You gotta listen to them. Tony Calhoun, Derek Dutton,
Zychek,
yeah, the man who started it all.
He did.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, man. We appreciate it.
Yeah. So how long have you been at MCC? Let's start right there. When did you move to MCC or start?
Somewhere around '98, and I was commuting from Dallas. I was living up there, and I came down. First thing that was so funny was Rob Page, who's now my boss. Rob and I went to the same college in Pittsburgh, and he's like, "You went to IUP, not IUD, IUP," and we'll talk.
What does that stand for?
Indiana University of Pennsylvania.
Okay. Indiana University.
And so Rob and I, we shared this common bond, and Hibbert was really cool, and then Gimbel, of course, and Frazier and Howard and Ullman. I just felt like home. So before you know it, I was hired full time around '99, 2000. And,
you moved to Waco and
moved to Waco. Shit, found a Waco girl. I got Waco kids and a Waco dog.
You got Texans. You got native Texans.
I got here as fast as I could in Texas.
But you're originally from Pennsylvania. Talk about what got you into drums back in the day.
Back in the day, so I was born in '64, and my parents were both about in their early 20s, and they just loved music. They loved. They grew up being born in 1940, like my mom. She went through the Elvis thing. She went through Little Richard, and just come to find out, she knows Howlin' Wolf. She knows all the Chess people.
She knows them?
Well, not.
Or knows of them.
No,
yeah.
She liked their music. She grew up with it.
That's pretty cool.
And my
parents were into Lawrence Welk, so you know.
Oh, my grandparents were into Lawrence Welk. That's what I'm saying. So, I feel fortunate to have two parents that had the good stuff. Right?
They were hip.
They smoked the good stuff. Yeah, right. they listened to the good stuff, and so we had music going in the house. I have an older sister. She's a piano player. She started playing piano at an early age, and her, between my sister and myself, I always wanted to play the drums. I just loved music. Saw a drummer one time, and then my dad came home with a record one day. He said, "It's a Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels. Here, I bought it for you." You got it at the 5 and dime for 50 cents or something. But
that's some of that great Detroit
dude,
music.
It was all Devil with the Blue Dress On, and Too Many Fish in the Sea, and all these pretty much like punk tunes. But the energy, I just loved that. And then growing up, it was pretty much Beatles and Stones.
Yeah.
Some Sinatra, some Johnny Cash, things like that. We weren't opposed to country, but it led into the Stones blossoming into what they did in the 70s. I mean, I was totally with that. And then my dad loved ZZ Top. He loved Grand Funk. All stuff with great drummers. I mean, Grand Funk was a big deal for me. Caught in the Act album is... I know so many albums back to front, front to back.
I think I have that.
If you knew them back to front,
I know them back to front. I can play them back. Well, I can play them backwards. But starting with some Grand Funk, and my sister loved Elton. She was a piano player, so
I loved Elton too.
Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, Don't Shoot Me.
My first album was Honky Chateau.
Oh, that's a great one.
Yeah,
so
that's the first piece of vinyl I ever owned. Was Honky, or actually, first real album. I think the first album I had was like K-Tel's 22 Dynamic Hits.
Oh, that's a good one.
But it had an Elton John song in it. It had, I think it had Levon or something on there. And and I think it was Christmas, and I asked my parents, you know, hey, could I get an Elton John album? They bought me Honky Chateau, and I still have it. And it was
we had that
mid-70s.
We had that one later on, but we had the Goodbye Yellow Brick Road really.
Oh,
really
yeah, I have that on, I think.
But Nigel Olson's a drummer. So so I'm totally into that band, and yet if you want to know how to play a ballad, Black Googaboo, dash, don't let your son, you know.
Nigel's great. He's underrated.
Totally underrated. He's kind of like a Ringo, but maybe better pocket, you know. Yeah. So I just loved that a whole lot. And I loved just a string of albums like Boston First Records, Styx, Grand Illusion, Frampton Comes Alive, Aerosmith, Toys in the Attic. Whatever my sister listened to, I had to listen to.
Yeah, good.
There was, the Frampton thing was driving me nuts, but it was fun. Great drumming. Again, really rock solid drumming that I would play along with, and good, you know, I hope someday to be that good as John Amos.
Yeah, exactly.
So you had a drum set in high school, I assume.
Well, I started lessons in 2nd grade, and
oh wow,
and it didn't take. Well, our band program started in 4th grade, and I wanted to get a head start, but all I would do is put on the Stones and bang around, and parents were like, "Oh, not gonna cut it." So 4th grade came around, I started up and did a whole year of lessons, reading, rudiments.
Did you have to take piano?
No. They didn't do that shit back then.
They did. They did at my
They didn't do that
school.
torture. They do that nowadays.
I wanted to play drums, and I think I taught my parents into buying a snare drum, but it was like my brother played trombone in the school band, and if I wanted to play drums, I had to take piano. And I had to learn, I guess,
Screw that.
See, drums are the world's greatest instrument. Every kid wants to play them. So
I played drums too in high school band.
So they say, you got to play keyboards if you want to play drums. And that and then like they run away in droves.
Yeah, see, I played drums in high school band, but I couldn't read music, so I just made it up. I really did.
And went with the flow is what
pretty
you did.
much. I just went with the flow. I played the tritoms at the time.
I mean, my parents. I mean, you know, God bless them, because we weren't rich, but they got my sister the best teacher in town, and you know they would go to the music teacher, the band director, who's good, and little Johnny goes to this old grump. What do you got today? You know, and he, you got to count. Quit! You're not counting. Count! And if I want 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and man, that counting, I'll tell you, that's.
They got a movie out now that's kind of like that.
Yeah, Whiplash.
Yeah,
but he wasn't that. This guy was funny. One that.
So that movie wasn't your life story.
I've had some band leaders who would kind of could yell at you like that. Bill Tillman once said, when I go to bed at night, Kutz, I got Zildjian tattooed in the back of my brain. Just lay off the cymbals.
That's funny. Well, you know, MCC has a great music curriculum. Tell us what's going on over there and some of the graduates you've seen come through the program, and as well as, you know, the instructors past and present. You know, like Kenny Frazier, Dick, and all those
guys. I know. It's... Okay, again, I'm up in Dallas. I get a call from you want to teach drums at MCC? It would entail teaching rock bands and drum set lessons. I'm like, I kind of, you know, I have degrees. I could teach at regular colleges, but I don't necessarily believe in pushing marimba and timpani and orchestral percussion on everybody, because I wanted to play drum set.
Yeah,
that's all I wanted to do. But in the 70s and 80s, that was Berkeley, that was Miami, it was a handful of places. So when I find out that there's this school and it's all pop music and it's country, rock, jazz.
A lot of them were, you know, jazz programs, like UNT too. Or,
exactly.
I mean,
well, yeah, but even UNT won't
Texas.
do rock. They're not going to teach you. They're not having rock bands.
No, they're jazz school.
It's all big band. I was judged on my big band abilities, which weren't that good.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So I get there and I start teaching rock bands, and I start noticing that everybody around the community went to MCC. Mm-hmm. I got a call. One of my first gigs was Joe Silva. Hey, I need a drummer coming through, do this tour with me. I worked with Joe for 15 years. Was with him the night before he left town. It was a thunderstorm and lightning. We were outside, like watching this. And
yeah, Joe is.
And damn, I didn't know that would be the last time I'd ever seen him. He never told anybody.
Yeah, he didn't.
But anyway, not to get sad on you.
That's okay.
That's in memory of Joe.
We talked about Joe with Tony Calhoun.
But Ruthie Foster, Joe Silva. I can never remember, so I wrote down some names. Sons of the Desert. When I was at North Texas, I was in a country band. And they're like, "This is what we want to be," and we went to see Sons of the Desert.
No kidding.
An MCC band. How about that? Clark Nowert, Tram Kelly. Clark teaches there. He went through there.
I know Clark.
Phil Bass plays with Monty Montgomery. Great drummer. He was one of the first kids recruited. Pat Kelly went there. Jeremy and Jesse, two guys that I play with. Kim and Kristen Kelly, and then Dick Gimbel's daughter now is kind of pretty famous. Emily,
yeah, she is.
Emily Gimbel. Also playing with the Wheel right now is Katie Holmes. She played.
I think isn't Emily playing with
Sleep at the Wheel?
Sleep at the Wheel, right?
With Katie Holmes, another fiddle player who went with us, who came to school. Caleb Jones, he's bass player, plays with Wade Bowen. I taught him. I'd be like, dude, you can't miss the first note going into the chorus, okay? Caleb, you can't miss it.
And
did get there and it'd be
has he gotten better? I guess if he's playing with Wade,
he's beyond my league.
Yeah,
but when I moved to Waco, I wish I would have known about MCC's music program, because that's probably what I would have done. I took audiovisual production at TSCC instead.
But you got a paying job where you could be.
That is true. That is true.
You know, the old joke is, what's the difference between a rotting zebra carcass and a musician? Do you know that answer?
The rotting carcass had a gig.
No, the rotting zebra carcass can feed a family of 4.
Was going to a gig.
That is true.
But anyways, I think it's been a long lineage of great players, and whenever I go around town and I run into former students, and the way I teach my kids this, and it's about getting good at one thing in life. If my kid can hit a baseball and get really good at baseball, he probably won't be a pro, but man, he can transfer those skills into being academics or whatever job that you're going to do. Get good at something. I just wanted to be the best I could be. I traveled the country. I'm a farm boy from Pennsylvania. I traveled the country just getting lessons, just going.
Talk about some of your travels.
Yeah,
who did you travel when you got out of high school and you went to college and was doing gigs with some people? I mean, talk about some of that.
I went to this school, IUP. It's a little school outside of Pittsburgh, and the guy didn't teach drum set lessons. Like Gary Olmsted, great teacher. I learned mallets, marimba, timpani, and that whole reading extraordinaire, but nothing on drum set. So I had my work cut out for myself. I had to teach myself basically, but I had some gigs around Pittsburgh. And number one, I played on. If you ever watch a Steelers game, you'll see a paddle boat going by on Three Rivers. I played on that paddle boat for about 2 years. About 3 months. And I got fired. I wasn't consistent. These dudes are like 40. They're 35, and they're great players. And I come in, and we would kill it one night, and then next night, I don't know, be hungover or something. Inconsistent. And they're just like, hey, dude, why can't you play like you did last night?
Well, there's all these influences that come into play that kind of affect your performance the next day, right?
I was 19. I didn't know.
Yeah, you're having fun.
I didn't know any better. And I got in a cover band with I wrote in the notes, in a cover band with the dude. Right? The dude.
You're talking about Big Lebowski, the dude?
No.
Okay.
But nevertheless, this guy was the dude before there was the dude on the Big Lebowski.
He's the original dude.
And he was a great bass player, and he would take me under his wing. Hey, and he would never yell at me. And I was a decent drummer. I could hold my own, but he gave me the chance. I played with Dude for about 2 years. The guy that I played with on Three Rivers, that bass player I went to school with, and he was an amazing bass player and slap. He was like a Stanley Clark kind of guy.
Right.
And he saw the spark. He's like, man, you got an energy about you like Tony Williams. That's what he said. And so he started recommending me, and I started working. So. I was on a drum set path. That was the whole deal. Man, you didn't let me tell my story. I got a 4th grade story. How did I get into the music biz, right? I played the 4th grade talent show. I played an Elton John song.
Which one?
Teacher, I Need You off Don't Shoot Me.
Yeah.
I'm only the piano player. And it's about teachers in 4th grade and the teachers. So, it's like the cafeteria, the crematorium, and there's a record player and like a really crappy mic, So I told this kid, I'm like, hold that mic up against the record player and we'll get it over the whole PA. And I knew the song inside and out, so I start rocking out. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm right with it. And I look up and kids are on their chairs like, and teacher's like, sit down now. I said sit down. And I'm playing and song ends and like, I was like a rock star.
So Jonathan, besides your 4th grade rock star moment, what are some of the great gigs you've had over the years?
It's so funny because I never made a resume about all the gigs that I've had, but coming into this interview, I'm like, I'm going to try to write down all my gigs because I've never done it, and I've been remembering. I mean, I was in my office and I saw my ID tag to Carnival Cruise Lines. And I was like, oh shit, I played on a cruise ship for 5 weeks. Filled in for a drummer one summer. I got into when I moved to Fort Lauderdale. I answered an ad. The first week there, I answered an ad for a drummer, and I had an audition, and I get to the audition, like, oh, we play the Booze Cruise for spring break, and it was 87. It was really like one of the last spring breaks in Fort Lauderdale, and like, yeah, we play 50 nights in a row.
Yeah, Fort Lauderdale, when I was in college, was a major destination.
Oh yeah, it was.
And then I think they ended up. They used to. I think they shut it down just because of all the problems.
They didn't want the locals didn't want it.
It moved to Panama City and
Daytona, and now those towns are doing the same thing. They're sick of it. So I auditioned, and I don't hear back. It's been 2 weeks, and I finally call him up. He goes, man, I was just about to call you, man. It was between you and another guy, and you got the gig, man. Congrats. So I did this gig 50 nights in a row on the Booze Cruise, and man, it was I thought I had a good set of chops, but after the first week, my arms are like semi-rubber, and by the second week, total rubber. By the third and fourth week, I am so relaxed.
How many gigs did you play a day, and how long?
We would just do one, but it was like 4-hour cruise.
Oh wow!
Yeah. 4-hour cruise. And it was by the end, people were jumping off the boat. They're having sex in the bathrooms. The lead singer comes up and he goes. I'm like, oh, my girl's so beautiful, man. I don't have the balls to talk to her. And he goes, come on. And he grabs me by the hand. He goes, hey, this is the drummer in the band. And she's like, oh, the drummer. I was like, oh, my God, is it really that easy?
Number 3 in the pecking order.
Yeah, I was like 5 in the pecking order because I'm the drummer, right?
No, it's usually the singer, the guitarist, the drummer, and then the bass players. Well, we know about bass players.
And bass players. God bless the bass players. I've been blessed to play with a lot of them. What else did I do down there? I got in this 50s band, and we started, we were the opening act, and then we would back the bands, because a lot of the bands didn't travel with the rhythm section, so Tommy James and the Shondells.
No kidding.
I'm so dizzy. And that was great.
Crimson and Clover.
Yeah, man, he rocks. And it was a great show. The Drifters. And we did the Dixie Cups, Go and Do the Chap. They're one hit, I was in this, it was called Asante, and it was this guy whose name was Chiseko Kandawi. Chiseko was from Kenya, and he would play these African folk tunes with this great bass player who would slap it up like Stanley Clarke. And we had Randy Bernson on guitar, who's kind of a semi-world famous fusion player. Did a tour with the Weather Report, and we'd go to this local bar, and we'd rock out. And I was like, this is heaven on earth. I'm in the beach. I'm at the beach because I'm a Pennsylvania snowbird.
Sure.
I'm in friggin' February, and
But you had the jazz chops to hang with these guys.
The jazz I think has been very good to me because I use it. Bonham used it as an element of swing. Yeah. Zeppelin had a swing and a swank to it, and I think anybody who plays jazz can at will put that swing. Mitch Mitchell with Jimi Hendrix, he had the swing. So all the great drummers had the ability to swing because they all came from the jazz background.
Right.
They came from they were kids in the 50s. They grew up with Max Roach and Elvin Jones, and those were the star drummers back in the day. Yeah. So Bonham was a Buddy Rich freak, and and then he got into James Brown too. But they had great sets of chops, and all the drummers from the '70s, we all played out of the same books. So Wilcox and Rudimental book, Jim Chapin book for coordination studies, and if kids don't learn, like, look at the first generation of drummers who didn't have jazz backgrounds, like Lars Ulrich.
Yeah, they
Metallica rocks, and then all the 80 hair bands rock. They ain't grooving like Led Zeppelin, right? There's no swagger and no swing in those bands, and that was the one reason why the hair metal never really floated my boat a whole lot. Tommy Lee, I liked him, but he had it a little bit. But Poison and all the bands, the songs I play with Camaro Mancer, those guys don't really swing. And if you hear them play all by themselves, they're like, yeah, they're okay. They're not Billy Cobham. They're not Steve Gadd. They're not all the heroes that.
Yeah, Cobham's one of my faves.
All the fusion guys. It wasn't until I got into college that I had this friend. We'd go to his room and listen to music. And Bill Bruford's solo albums, Phil Collins with Brand X. Those are great records.
I've got the Brand X.
Brand X is amazing, and people are like, Phil Collins is Lion King. I'm like, dude, you're a moron. You don't know.
I have
the great
that album
drumming
in
of
my
Phil
house.
Collins.
It's amazing.
It's fusion drumming. There's, and Phil started singing on it, and then Genesis got real popular, and then he went solo, of course. And I had a friend, Ray. I worked at a music store. I worked at Peaches Records and Tapes, big record chain.
Sure.
And my buddy Ray said,
"Hey, I have a Peaches shirt."
Dude, Peaches. It was
I
great.
think it was on the last
shirts.
episode.
It almost looked like Eat a Peach. I think the Allman Brothers kind of stole that logo, or Peaches stole that logo.
Now, they probably stole that logo because Eat a Peach was like 1971 or 2.
My good friend Ray Bell, we started this jam band where we would just jam and record it, and they would cut it up and edit it into songs, like Frank Zappa or something.
Yeah.
And then put stupid vocals on it, or after the fact, after we jammed, So it was kind of organic, and that was kind of fun. And Ray, and so while I'm at Peaches, Jaco Pastorius walks.
Because you're living in...
I'm in Fort Lauderdale, and Jaco's from Fort Lauderdale. So he would walk in and just like take a handful of Weather Report cassettes and walk out the door, and the manager would be like, "Oh, that's Jaco. Yeah, he does all the time." So call me up when Jaco comes in the store. He's my, he's our idol. If you love music, and I had a boner for fucking Jaco.
Because Jaco, he went through that University of Miami music program.
He did, he did that, and his dad.
Pat Metheny went through that. Steve Morse went through that.
And that's why I went down there. I really wanted to go to UM, but for drum set, I didn't get in for drum. I wanted to be a grad ass and go for free because it's a private school, but I didn't get it, so I just went to the guy's house and studied with him. And that was really my drum set education. And he taught Steve Rucker, University of Miami, taught me a ton of stuff. I never had a drum set teacher who would be like, "Hey, this is what Bonham would do." I'm like, "Oh my God, now you're talking about, now you got me." Hey, Steve Gadd, Dave Garibaldi, and we studied all the masters, and we'd go back and study the swing guys and the fusion masters as well. So that was really, why I went there, and that's really what I got. So the manager, back to Peaches, the manager one night calls me, "John to the currency desk, John to the currency desk." And he's like, there he is. I'm like, who?
Jaco?
He's like, there's Jaco. He's in cut-off shorts, bloody knees. He's got a bandana around his head like a wife beater, looking like, hadn't been washed in 2 weeks. We walk around the record store a little bit, and he's like, "Oh yeah, played on that record, Bright Size Life, Pat Metheny, that little twit." It's like, "We wouldn't let me even do what I wanted." He's just bad mouthing. Stanley Clark, maybe we're the greatest.
Jaco did have a personality disorder that eventually led to his demise in Miami.
In Fort Lauderdale. It happened.
Was it in Fort Lauderdale?
It was at a Santana concert, and I was supposed to go, and I couldn't go. And he went and tried to get on stage, and they wouldn't let him on stage because he was probably lit by that time. And then went to a bar afterwards, and he'd be like, "I'm American Indian, motherfucker. I'm going to kick your ass." And he was messing around with like a kung fu bouncer who drop kicked him and pretty much killed him. But some great. I was at my car was on the lift, and Jaco's walking by. I said, "Hey," he's like, "John, hey." I'm like, "Hey," he goes, "Hey man, you got a buck I could borrow?" I said, "A buck?" I said, "I'll give you $2 if you sit down and talk to me for a little bit." And he's like, "Okay, yeah, okay." And I was like, "Hey man, I'm a drummer," and told him my deal, and he wanted me to do this finger exercise where he would do contrary motion. He would touch his thumb and first finger and thumb and pinky, and then go to the consecutive fingers. It's going in reverse to all your fingers, and then he could do it really, really fast. And he was doing some rhythmic things, and I'd be like, Jocko, man, you're the world's greatest bass player. Come on, man, get with it, you know.
That's an amazing story.
He's like, where? Got the money? Got the $2, John? Thanks. And off he goes. Always. But he was. I never got to see him play, but I talked to him a whole bunch.
That's cool. Well, that's cool. That's beyond cool.
And I think he stole my car battery. I know he did, but I can't prove it.
Crazy guy.
That's about the point in time where I started thinking about coming to Texas. I had a buddy, my roommate from IUP is Paul Rennick, and Paul was at UNT, so I kind of had the ins. And then the teacher at North Texas went to IUP, so it's kind of this IUP connection. So it just kind of happened, right? So
how did you get to Texas, though?
I drove.
You drove. That's one way to get there.
Well, I just, I auditioned and I got an assistantship, so I just packed up and I moved, and I landed in Denton, with my little Toyota, and that's a whole nother round of gigs, and I had a country gig with Cutter Cross and some guys I'm still friends with. Learning top 40 country. I'm from Pennsylvania, man. We didn't know country in Pennsylvania. I know Johnny Cash, Willie, but nothing. Top 40. That was country. All of a sudden hit in the early 90s.
There weren't a bunch of Amish country bands up there at that point.
Is there much swing in country?
Up in Pennsylvania?
No, I mean in country music.
Well, if you go back
there's
to
a Texas swing
Texas
to it.
swing,
But what I'm talking about is by '92 it was it was Garth Brooks.
Yeah.
And Garth hit and all the other 40 the girls. It was all rock and roll now in country. So, but that was an education because there I am, a jazzer and playing real busy. It's the first time that I had to play really subdued.
Yeah.
So, and that's really where I've come to now is playing as busy as I could play. Now I'm trying to play as simple as I can play.
So over the years, you pretty much played in mostly cover bands along the way. I mean, any original bands and
a cool project that not many people remember is I came to Waco. I come to Waco and pretty much I jammed with Pat Kelly and Brian Yaska for a little bit. And during one of our gigs at Six Shooter Junction, which became Treff's, Jeremy and Jesse were always up there drinking, and they're like, "Man, you're a motherfucker, dude." And we kind of bonded. I'm like, "These guys are really nice." And then Jesse, Fritz, and I had a really nice, strong bond, and Jeremy more too. I mean, we're best friends, But at first, it was Jesse and I. We'd go out drinking and join the band and tell me all about the band. But we really had a symbiosis because it wasn't like there was no attitude in the band with Brian and Jeremy and Jesse. It was let's jam and let's kill them. Let's just kill them. And nobody's bitching about, well, this song rushed or this is, it wasn't like petty little things that I had experienced in Dallas. It was just a jam. And that was refreshing to me because that's what it's all about. And I was like, these guys know something.
And you guys were able to pull in a little bit of a crowd, I guess?
We owned Waco back in the day. We kind of laugh now about how much money we were making back in those days because we were working all the time and bars paid $600-800 to go play. Right. Well, a long story short, I don't really want to get into why we broke up, but Jesse and Jeremy wanted to do originals, and they had done the Sloppy Joe record, and you heard that with what those guys were talking about when they were here. They wanted to basically do an original thing, so we went our own way and we formed a band with Brandon Kaysen called Daystar. We made one CD made from my retirement funds.
Where did you record?
How do you know your band's going to break up? Make a CD. Okay.
Is that an investment strategy?
And I have all these 8,000 copies up in the attic of my garage, right? But it's a really great CD, and it's all.
Where did you record?
We went down to the fire station in San Marcos, and got a pretty good drum sound, but it's really a Jeremy Moore thing. It's really the songs feature really guitar oriented, double, triple track guitars.
Yeah.
He doesn't tout it enough. We don't have it online. I mean, I need to put up a website.
I remember the band Daystar. I remember hearing that name, but
it's a really good band. Well, long story short, you make your album, and then the friction between Jesse and Brandon, and next thing you know, we are a trio. And we were the Joint Chiefs. I can't remember. We were the Joint Chiefs, the three of us. And that lasted about a year, and then we decided to go our own ways. And that was Tony and Derek. I played with those guys. And so Tony...
you and Derek are Pleasure, I assume.
We try to pleasure Tony.
Yes.
We had a great band. So I went to see the band, and they had this really horrible drummer. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy can sing like nobody and can play the bass like no. Tony should be a star. He really should. Tony should, if the right agent would hear Tony, and maybe this eye check thing.
He was lived in Germany.
Yeah, he grew up in Germany, so he's a worldly guy. I mean, he's people want to peg him as some dude from the streets or something. I mean, he's a world talent. But I just love that guy to death. And I respect the crap out of Tony, and I really wish the world. Beth Ullman from MCC played a jazz gig, and it was her and Tony, and I forget that doctor who plays keyboards. I forget his name. And she comes to school and she goes, I finally played a gig with Tony Calhoun. She said, what an instrument he has. She was greatly impressed with him, and I'm like, I told you. I told you.
He laid down some pretty sweet riffs here in the shed.
And the fact that he can play bass like that. So that's, again, I finally went from Jesse, who was kind of following me, and now I'm playing with the older guy who now I'm following the old guy, the older guy.
Sure.
And it's, again, I always love to be mentored. I have a lot of people who really help me along. I was always usually the bass player, and I was like, man, finally, back to being the student, which I loved. And Tony and I, believe it or not, never talked music. We talked live and this and that, but he'd be like little things, but not like, hey, you need to do this. We never talked about it. And it's a sign of a great band. Like, I don't hire you to come play with me and then go, hey, you need to
do this,
and then you need to do this. And like, I'm hiring you to do what you do because I don't have to tell you.
Well, that's what makes a great band, when everybody does their own thing, and it all meshes together.
The current Sloppy Joe with Jesse and Jimmy Kay. Jimmy Kay, another great bass player. I mean, we never talk about what pattern are you playing, and you just do it.
Yeah,
you just do it at the gig, man, and you listen and you play.
Well, speaking of old guys, you played on Ted Nugent's latest record. How did that come about? And were you a fan of Ted Nugent in the 70s growing up?
Of course. My first rock band, Old Hard Child, was my first rock band, Daryl Rocky's Basement. We played the first song, Highway to Hell, second song, Cocaine, third song, Cat Scratch Fever. Didn't have to listen to it. It was kind of like Chuck Berry, Johnny. We could all play that, or there's standard rock tunes that everybody just knows. So and the new, we play Stranglehold. We knew it. We didn't have to listen to it. I saw him in the Spectrum 77, opening up for AC/DC opened for him, Golden Earring. And I was like, Ted, I saw you in 77. And he goes, oh, yeah, I remember that. And that's
I remember you. Did he say, I remember you?
He didn't remember me, but I didn't meet him. But Calvin Ross, Calvin met him in the 70s. Just a fan who'd just go to the show, and Ted would meet and greet. He is a real amazing dude with amazing amount of energy. So he would remember Calvin from gig. Hey, Calvin, what? He didn't drink or do drugs. He had other vices, but so yes, to answer your question, I was a fan. So Calvin and Ted are good friends, and Calvin recommended me, and Calvin called me, and I didn't know. I've never really met Calvin. Calvin says, "You and I need to go to Subway and says, hey, play on some of my demos, and Ted will hear them, and I bet you something will happen with it." I'm like, okay. We go up to Zycheks, and the tracks were already laid down for Calvin's stuff, and two really great songs, and we knocked them out, and And sooner or later, I get this phone call, name unavailable. I'm like, hello, I'm at the bank, you know. Hey, John, Ted, dude, I want you to play on some of the tracks, just doing some demos. And, $200 sound good? And, yeah, sure, Ted. Let's do it.
So this is at Ronnie's studio, right?
We go out to Ronnie's studio, and so just imagine being there waiting, and a rock star pulls up and gets out and walks. Hey, motherfuckers, what's up? And Ruggs is out there, and Ronnie's like, "Hey, Ted, you hear about the gun laws trying to pass in Texas?" And that he just
so
goes,
does he?
Does
he
goes
mix
off.
Politics into his everyday conversation?
If you take him there, and I learned a lot about drumming from Ted, and Ted's super attuned to the drummer, and so we talk about his great drummers. I'm like, well, man, Tommy Aldridge on that live album is just that's just smoking. And he says, you know what, Tommy was the world's greatest drummer until he started drumming for other drummers, because he'd put on the double bass and the crazy licks during the Ted tunes, and Ted's just like, if you're going to play with me, just play my tunes. He said, listen to the original, and he loves his original drummer. I forget his name. The original drummer on all the Nugent stuff. But a great drummer, and so I've listened to a whole lot of that, and but then we get in the studio, and he's like, oh, in this section I want to keep moving, and he's just like, fill it up as much as you can, kind of challenging me maybe to see what I had, and we did a song called I Still Believe. And I did a take or one. I actually did one or two takes. And after the first take, he walked out and he goes, "Boy, you got one hell of a touch. You got one hell of a touch." And I didn't know really what he was talking about till I went and listened to his original drummer, and probably then compare that with Mick Brown, his current drummer, which is a pretty different thing. Not better, not worse. Just an observation. And more the mix kind of heavy, an 80s hair metal drummer as opposed to his drummer who's kind of a lighter touch. Yeah. I don't play that hard. I wouldn't say I play light, but I don't play big motions, and I don't really.
You talk about Bonham a lot, although Bonham was notoriously
he was a powerhouse. Yeah.
Well, the drums were big. With Bonham, it was big drums, and everybody says he was loud, but maybe he was playing a small bar in Birmingham and drowned out the band, and it could have been a small bar. PA systems back in the day were smaller. I'm sure he played loud.
He hit the skins pretty good.
But drumming has gotten so big, and people are playing from above their head. Hold your hands above your heads and let them fall down on the instruments. Do that all night, you're going to get a little tired. Yeah. But anyway, so we did that tune, and he loved it so much he released it on his website. Because I'm going to give this away for free. This is good, And then he's like, hey, let's do another one. And we did I Love My Barbecue. I didn't know what we were doing, And it turns out we were just doing demos for his record company. And then like 2 years later, he goes, all right, man, I got this record. It's due. Meet me out at Zychek's, and we got to start cranking out these songs. And so he would. The way it works is he'd go play the bass and play the guitar and do a vocal, and I'd hear it about 8 times while he did all these passes, putting all these instruments on it, and I just go in, write out a little cheat sheet. I go in there and
What does he play along with? Does he have a drum track?
Just a click.
Click
yeah,
track?
Probably just some kind of click. He always calls me up and, man, are you available? I guess I don't know what the deal is with he and Mick, but he threatens to fire him. But he loves Mick. And he's loyal, and he's very loyal to his people, and I don't think he really wants to. It bugs him a little bit, but he doesn't want to fire him because he loves him. Right. So maybe who knows? I'm saying no, because I've never really gotten the call, even though he's mentioned it. But he doesn't. He could have 10 years at the most. He can get with his guys and do a rehearsal and go play to 50,000 people. And with one rehearsal, sure. It's just rehashing what they, every year they do 80 shows, so it's just getting things warmed up.
So it's got to be surreal to think back when you're a teenager listening to Ted Nugent songs, and all of a sudden now you're in the studio with him playing on new songs. I mean,
well, yeah. So I did the demos, and then at one point, right before we did the album, he said, "Come on, let's go out to the studio and and jam, and it was kind of like my audition, and we went through all the songs. So I got to play all the classics with him, which I had practiced fucking feverishly
for years. Huh?
Well, for a couple months to really, impress him. And
you probably practiced in your head.
Let me
for
tell
the
you
last
this.
30 years,
You're gonna think I'm lying, and it sounds like no joke, but I'm not bragging, because I'm not. I'm the most humble because I've had it handed to me so many times by great drummers. But he said, "Man, you and Tommy Clufetos are the only two MFers who've played my show perfectly." Now, it wasn't perfect, I can tell you that, but it wasn't a major stumble or anything like that. It was just, I knew what, I missed a little this or a little that, but he said, "Okay, I'll be in touch with you." And he called back and said, not time to pull the plug yet. So, already had the audition, then we did the album. We did Shut Up and Jam, and I played on 10 of those tracks. And the deal was, we're going to start with you. We have these 5 tunes, and we rehearsed them with Greg Smith, a great bass player who's played with Ronnie James Dio and Alice Cooper, Billy Joel. Amazing bass player. And we were rehearsing in my garage. Funny story, man. We're eating he brought us bottles of water and a Hershey bar each, and we're like eating our Hershey. And he had his knees operated on, but he's just walking down my driveway, and it's kind of out in the woods a little bit. He starts running, and he gets out his gun. He's like, "Oh my god, oh my god!" And we look out, and there's these 3 big coyotes. I had never seen.
Drop them?
I was like, "What's back there?" I'm like, "Ted, no, there's horses back there. Don't do that." I was ready to shoot these coyotes. I'm like, what a story, right? So, can you imagine my neighbors, like when we're the garage doors up, and we're jamming, and they hear Ted Nugent.
Well,
then they call the cops, and the cops show up, and it's freaking Ted Nugent.
Well, the cops know Ted because he rides around with them. So, we did the album then last April, and it came out in July, and we started with 5 tunes, which I feverishly, I had we learned the tunes. We made the demo. I played on the demo, so I know the tunes, right? We rehearsed the day before we go in, and he changes all the arrangements, shortens them all up, like no. Luckily I had my phone there, and I had scratchy recordings. I recharted the changes. It wasn't a big deal, but I don't want to be the one screwing up. I got an Alice Cooper bass player and Ted Nugent, and by God, I'm not going to be the guy. So I learned that stuff, and we went in, and we almost took the whole album, 1 take on each song. We did 5, and then the next day we went in and we had 4 more to do, and we did those in 2 hours.
Were these recorded at Largemouth too, or
no? These were out at Dick Gimbel's studio. We were trying to use a bigger room to get a big drum sound. He brought in his producer from Michigan, Michael Lutz, not Kutz, but Michael Lutz. Michael's a great guy, and got really great sounds. All the great Birdlands and Les Pauls and all these amps. They had all this equipment out there, and we're looking at each other, and we got 9 songs in the can. He goes, "Oh, I got this old tune from the 70s called Do Rag in a 45. Let's do that one." Okay, it starts like this, and he would go and
back to here it goes.
Dude, he would go. The first song was called Shut Up and Jam. It's really, really fast. So fast that when the song ends, I'm out of breath, And he's like, "All right, let's do another one." Oh Jesus Christ! I'm cramping up. I need some water, and no time to even get a drink. He doesn't even want to listen to playback. "All right, let's do another." We do 4 in a row. You get that? The level's good. All right, we'll move on. And no time to take a break, man. Just wang bang, thank you, mang. We were 2 days. They had 7 days budgeted for all these tunes, and we were done in 2 days. We're doing background vocals. We're doing. They did all the guitar parts, and then they brought in 2. Mick Brown came in, did 2, and Johnny B came in. This is a great story because it ties in with Mitch Ryder. He's a drummer for Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels. They were ahead of Ted in Detroit.
Sure.
They were Ted's idols, and Johnny B is Ted's he loved Johnny. So he brings Johnny in, and I picked Johnny up at the airport. And I got to hang with him. We were at Crickets eating and drinking beer, and what a guy. And I was like, he's like, "You play on those demos?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, goddamn, why does he just use that? Why does he want me?" I'm like, "'Cause you're his idol, man." I said, "Furthermore, you're my idol. I learned to play drums. You're the first record I ever listened to, And so you're influenced by me, but you're really influenced by yourself because I'm influenced by you.
That's cool.
Isn't that crazy?
That's amazing. Yeah.
It came full circle, and we during that first demo session too. I wasn't even thinking Detroit. I wasn't trying to kiss ass. I just said, yeah. I mean, my dad had this Mitch Ryder album, and it was just always one of my favorite records. All his greatest hits. He's like, no shit, and I started doing a fill on the demo that's fast, and it's a snare drum thing, and that's Good Golly Miss Molly. Like, that's the lick, and I subconsciously threw that in there, and Ted
made a friend.
Ted thinks I'm a golden god.
Yeah, right. That's an awesome story.
It's a Johnny B story, right? And he was 70 something. And Johnny B would start playing, and he would go from a 70-year-old man to a 16-year-old kid. Dude, I was looking through this window. I'm like, he just morphed into like a 20-year-old man when he played those drums. It was something else.
Well, hey, man, we really appreciate you being on the show. And do you have any advice for any up-and-coming drummers, musicians?
How do you make $1 million in the music business?
You do.
Start with $2 million.
Yes.
Thanks for being on the show. And
no, wait. I just got to say this to anybody who wants to be in music. And if you want to be in music, you've got to be a practicer. And you got to sit in a room by yourself and figure out your instrument. Jimi Hendrix, they said, practiced 12 hours a day. Went to the bathroom with his guitar on.
It's called the woodshed.
You play and you play and you play and you play. If you want to be good, or if you want to make it, you got to be the best. You can't be good because good's mediocre.
Everybody's good.
So what are you going to shoot for? Shoot for something. Shoot for the moon, and go practice 12 hours a day. And come see me for lessons. I'll give you lots of stuff to work on.
Go to MCC.
Don't freaking have any kind of drug habit or a drinking problem. It's just so destructive. And Nugent talks about it all the time on all the documentaries. But it's destroyed so many bands and so many lives. And our history is just littered with bodies of drugs and alcohol. Just if you're into the music, just be into the music and do music. And it's the greatest thing ever. And
music is the greatest drug.
It's the only thing worth living for. That's really. I mean, you got family, and you don't. Who really likes their job except we music profs at MCC?
Well, what do you think of the current state of the music world?
Oh, it's in disarray. We're trying to figure out the new paradigm. Get that airplane.
We got it.
It's gonna crash.
We're in the shed.
Well, they got to figure out the new paradigm, and they got to figure out how we're going to make money off of our music. And right now, we don't really have it. Spotify doesn't seem to be the answer because people aren't getting paid all that much. And for the subscription service, goes to a concert and pay. I saw Fogerty for me and my mom, and it cost me $500 for 2 tickets. I mean, they're getting their money that way. So maybe ticket prices would go down if we pay a friggin' quarter a tune, people, or everybody join and be on the subscription service.
Well, it's crazy to think back in the day a 45 was what, 75 cents, and now you can download a song off iTunes for 99 cents.
It didn't really
it hadn't really changed much.
I really think that the subscription thing, like Spotify, will be part of Time Warner, and Time Warner will contribute millions of dollars to the publishers and the artists, and some way to make a hair more money. I don't think we all really will argue that we need to be dirty rich gazillionaires. But man, when somebody has 8 million views on YouTube and they get a check for $9,000, there's something wrong with that.
No doubt.
Exactly.
So they'll get it figured out, and when they do, I'm just hoping for a great band to come along. I'm hoping for a Beatles or a Zeppelin or somebody to really tear it up and get people excited about music like our generation was. So maybe it's a different time. Maybe music is a little passé, but it would take one great band. I'm a hopeless romantic. I'm thinking that band's right around the corner at any given time because there are great bands out there. It's just hard to discover them and for the mass population to get in touch with the good.
Do you think it's all been done? You think rock music has all been done?
No. There's
you don't think every song has been written every good song.
But when you factor in all the factors, yes, chord progressions are limited, but man, you got a whole tempo spectrum to work with, a vibe that you project, lyrics of what you're saying. I mean, look what Dylan said with music. Look what the Doors said with music. Look what Zeppelin, the words that they were using, or Joni Mitchell. There's so many. Music is just more than the chords. It's that meaning of the words, and we love music that had something to say, that had a message. I mean, fuck, we got our morals from our rock and roll, right?
That's right.
Sex, drugs, rock and roll. Which is a good place to end this.
All right, John. Well, that was a good way to end, and man, we can't thank you enough for coming to the Shed.
My pleasure, man. I love this series. Listen to all the other ones, my musical peoples out there in radio land, YouTube land. And there's more to come. You guys got a lot of.
We have a long list of people we want to get in the Shed.
A long list. I was really hoping. I was like, man, I hope I make the list.
You made the list.
I made the list.
You're in the program.
I'm in the program.
We now have Tony Calhoun and The Pleasure have been on our show.
You've been pleasured. How did it feel?
Well, hey, man, we want to thank you for being on our show. And, man, we look forward to seeing you at a gig
thanks
in the future.
It's been an honor.